I wonder how old Luke was when he was born. We sure had a unique team at Ohio State in those days, though. I think it was the only team in the history of college basketball to have 5 players go on and play professional basketball. The other players were John Havlicek, Larry Siegfried, of course, my teammate John is in the audience tonight, and the other 2 were Joe Roberts and Mel Knoll. We all had different personalities, but we worked as one on the court. Good teamwork always gives the best results, as we shall see in this review of the major winter sports: college basketball, professional basketball, and ice hockey.
Of all the points that were scored in all the professional and amateur basketball leagues last season, this one basket in the middle of an otherwise inconsequential game is the one that got the most attention. This skyhook gave Kareem Abdul-Jabbar 31,421 career points and broke Wilt Chamberlain's NBA scoring record. The shot has been in Kareem's repertoire since he was a high school sensation named Lou Alcindor. As a star of 3 UCLA championship teams and through 16 NBA seasons, Jabbar has been so physically imposing that many have taken him for granted. Too much of what the big man accomplished seemed too easy, especially when the effort seldom showed. With his record, the affection for Jabbar has begun to match the admiration for his talents.
It is my great honor and pleasure to congratulate you on becoming the highest scorer in the history of the National Basketball Association.
1984 was also a notable year for this man, All-NBA forward Bernard King of the New York Knicks. King has had so many ups and downs in his career that he was named Comeback Player of the Year in 1981 as a Golden State Warrior at the unlikely age of 24. Last season, he became the scoring machine that experts always knew he could be. With this nearly unstoppable array of offensive tricks, King became the first player since Wilt Chamberlain to have back-to-back 50-point games on consecutive nights.
50-point games for Bernard King.
But no pro basketball player accomplished more than Sportsman of the Year candidate Larry Bird of the NBA champion Boston Celtics. Many experts say that the Celtic forward is the best all-around player in the game today. Bird is the kind of all-out competitor who'll go man-to-man or jaw-to-jaw with anyone. Whether maneuvering inside or driving from the outside, Bird was always in full flight. In the championship series against the Lakers, the Celtics had to go 7 topsy-turvy games to win. Bird was voted MVP for the playoffs, and the league's MVP as well. One of the few times a forward has gained that honor.
I just want to say I'm very proud to be a Boston Celtics. It's been a great honor for me to show my talents in Boston. The fans have been great, the players have been great, and the coach has even been great. We had a lot of heart and a lot of desire, and it carried over and we won a championship. It's been a great honor for me to play in the NBA, and I hope my continued success to myself and to my teammates, and I just want to win some more rings. Thank you very much.
In college basketball, the player of the year was the wondrous Michael Jordan of North Carolina. Jordan has been touted as pound for pound, inch for inch, the most exciting player in the game. Jordan's talents became even more apparent in the Olympics, where he was the main attraction of a one-sided basketball show. In the NCAA tournament, however, victory went to this star and this team, and most importantly to this man and his unshakable faith in his own way of doing things. The star is Pat Ewing, a Jamaican immigrant who grew up in Boston, and the team is Georgetown, so deep, so menacing that it barely mattered which of its regulars was on the court. The coach is John Thompson, who won his first national championship final in his 12th year at Georgetown. Thompson became the first black coach ever to win any major NCAA Division I title. And to his further credit, all of Thompson's players at Georgetown have received their degrees. In In a vintage year for rookies, no one, perhaps, played such a large role in shaping his team's success than did Tom Barrasso, who went right from a Boston high school to the goaltender nets of the Buffalo Sabres. Barrasso not only won the Calder Trophy as NHL Rookie of the Year, but he also took the Vezina Trophy as the league's best goalie. But how fleeting glory can be. After doing poorly in the first 6 games of the season, Barrasso was sent down briefly to the Buffalo Farm Club. He's back now in Buffalo, a little wiser in the way of professional sport. There haven't been any detours in Wayne Gretzky's road to success. At 23, the Edmonton Center has become the youngest institution in sports. In 1982, at age 21, he was our Sportsman of the Year, winner of the 1984 scoring championship for a 4th consecutive time, winner of the MVP for his 5th time in 5 seasons in the league, and now, above all, leader of the Stanley Cup champion Oilers. Gretzky is truly a remarkable athlete. Can you imagine what must go through a goalie's mind when they see Gretzky coming at them on a breakaway? I mean, talk about fear. It's funny how we remember years. I remember 1981 as a very busy year. You might say it was a year in which I wore 3 different hats. A headset as an NFL commentator for NBC, a helmet as an inductee into college football's Hall of Fame, and a halo as Father Murphy. 1981. The play of the year in 1981. Dwight Clark snares Joe Montana's desperation pass to carry San Francisco past Dallas and on to the Super Bowl. In baseball, LA's portly Fernando Valenzuela won both the National League Rookie of the Year and Cy Young awards. Bjorn Borg's bid for a record-breaking 6th straight Wimbledon was spoiled by John McEnroe. Golfer Kathy Whitworth became the first woman to earn $1 million in career earnings. In Alabama, a bear of a man became college football's all-time winningest coach. And Sugar Ray Leonard defeated Thomas Hearns for the World Welterweight title and became Sportsman of the Year. Ladies and gentlemen, Sugar Ray Leonard.
Thank you, Merlin. You know, while I was backstage, it suddenly occurred to me that I'm the only one up here tonight who's actually younger than Sports Illustrated. I mean, that's kind of wild, especially when you consider I'm only 28 and I've already retired from my sport. But I remember growing up in Palmer Park, Maryland, looking forward to each Sportsman of the Year issue and thinking about all the past winners, Muhammad Ali in particular, and I say to myself, I want to be one of those guys. And then in 1981, I became one of those guys. And to have that honor bestowed upon me, it was an incredible feeling. Now, of course, I wouldn't have been the Sportsman if Tommy Hearns hadn't cooperated that year. You see, the Hearns fight wasn't just an ordinary fight. It was a symbolic fight because it meant that I was number 1. It meant that I was an overall fighter and athlete. Also, it was like the last chapter in a book because, see, everything in my life had led up to that special moment. But then again, a fighter never seemed to have just one last chapter. As you might remember, I made a comeback attempt last May against Kevin the Spoiler Howard. And he was able to do what no man was able to do before. He knocked me down. And sitting there on the seat of my pants, looking up at the bright lights, I realized then that my career should come to an end. And then people say, well, Sugar Ray, why did you retire? Things just didn't go the way I planned. You know, I won the fight quite naturally, but I just didn't have what was always present, my concentration. And then people say, oh, Sugar Ray, you were so crazy in the first place. to get back in the ring, why would you take such a big risk? I would reply, I've been taking risks all my life, so what's the problem with one more time? But I can tell you, standing here tonight, I'm glad I tried it when I was young, because now when I'm 35 or 45, I don't have to look back and say, what would happen if? People, I know what would happen. You see, now I finally got the old fight bug out of my system, and I'm very pleased and satisfied with my association with HBO. You know, one of the things that I liked about boxing, it was me against the other guy, you know? It was the one-on-one confrontation. Now, there are other sports that stress individual achievement. Let's take a look at them now and meet our next candidate for Sportsman of the Year.
This was the punch that sent Sugar Ray Leonard back into retirement and set the stage for boxing's next super fight between junior middleweight champion Tommy Hearns and undisputed middleweight champion Marvelous Marvin Hagler. In 1984, Hearns and Hagler both destroyed well-known opponents. Hearns knocked out Roberto Duran, the first time Duran had ever finished on the canvas. Later in 1984, Hagler floored Mustafa Hamsho in his best performance since 1982. The biggest rivalry in tennis got even bigger at the French Open in Paris. In the finals at Roland Garros Stadium, Ivan Lendl beat John McEnroe in one of 1984's biggest upsets and turned his own image upside down. Before the match, Lendl was considered a terrific everyday player who became Ivan the Terrible when it mattered the most. But then, in Paris, McEnroe's McNasty temper got the best of him.
How many times like that?
Lendl came back to win the final 3 sets and at last his first Grand Slam title. And let's not make too much of the French or too little of McEnroe. Even though Mac the junk food freak can hardly stretch below his knees, he still may be the most graceful player the game has ever seen. And at Wimbledon, he had no trouble proving it. His rout of Jimmy Connors in the All-England final can only be measured in artistic terms. And he was just as devastating in defeating Ivan Lendl to win the U.S. Open. As Vitas Gerulaitis puts it, Mac is making shots now that defy the laws of physics. Women's tennis in 1984 was dominated by this Sportswoman of the Year candidate, the incomparable and it seems unconquerable Martina Navratilova. Tennis players call it being in the zone. It means you're in a whole other world. That's exactly where the divine Miss M has been for 2 years now. In 1984, Navratilova won 74 consecutive matches and 13 straight tournaments. She extended her streak in Grand Slam events to 6. After winning for the second time on clay at the French Open, she once again conquered the grass courts at the All-England Club by winning her 5th title at Wimbledon. Martina then returned to her adopted home to win her 2nd U.S. Open. She has accomplished all of this by making herself the best athlete in women's tennis.
Well, it's been a gradual process of getting in shape and working on my technique. For the first time ever, I had a coach since I was on the circuit, Renee Richards, and then Micah Stepp for the last year and a half. And for the first time, I really felt that I was learning something. I was basically just playing on instinct and talent before that, and didn't do anything off the court in terms of getting in better shape. And so I've learned a whole lot. But the physical part, it just enables you to work that much harder on your technique because you're in shape to do that. So it all goes hand in hand.
Ironically, Martina's only losses of the year were to 2 other players born in Czechoslovakia, Hanna Madlikova in January and Helena Sukova in December at the Australian Open, a loss that ended Martina's bid for a 1984 Grand Slam. With Martina on the sideline, Chris Evert Lloyd then defeated Sukova